Joining the Region Underground is the Honorable Attorney General for the great state of Indiana, Greg Zoeller. Hey, Greg.
Hey, it's good to be back with you.
Welcome to the Region Underground. Seems like only 4 or 5 days ago we were talking.
Well, I know that sounds like you're getting tired of me, but I'm up here again. I'm up here again on another. Actually, we were over in the Lake County courthouse earlier today, filing 3 different actions. So it's been a busy day already.
People who are breaking the law are probably getting tired of you. It doesn't bother me. I wish you would have stopped in today. I didn't realize that you were going to be there so early in the morning.
Well, I'm sorry I couldn't make it by there. I got kind of stuck over on another part of town, but I'm close. I'm in. I guess I'm in Maryville now.
Oh, you're still in Maryville?
Yeah. No, I've got to be in town here, and then I'm going to go up. I've got half a day in Chicago tomorrow, so I don't get home for a while.
Okay. I know you have an office somewhere out there in Maryville at an undisclosed location, and that's fine. But are you going to remain in the region overnight?
I think that's a security risk for me to say it on the radio.
Right.
Yes, I am going to spend the night up here.
Listen, no one knows more about security risks than I do. Now, I know that you had 3 different filings today. Only one, I believe, of which had to do with Northwest Indiana. So let's go to that one, and then we're going to appease everybody else in Northwest Indiana who thinks you only investigate things in Northwest Indiana because there is crime in other places. But let's talk about what happened or what is happening with the lawsuit or suit in Maryville. Is it the Verlissa Crenshaw, I think?
Actually, that one we filed, and it's a similar type of civil action we've done in a number of cases where public employees are seen to make off with funds. The State Board of Accounts files an audit. It's my obligation to go after the money. So we filed over in the county courthouse seeking treble damages. We're also seeking to trigger the bond. You'll remember that a few years ago I asked the General Assembly to change the statute so that all public employees that handle money are required to take out a bond. So we'll try to forfeit the $50,000 bond and at least get that much back. But then the statute allows me to seek treble damages for essentially what is embezzlement from the town council's funds.
Can you describe how this money was being diverted, if that's the right word to use?
Well, it's alleged at this point, and I think there's also criminal actions, but it's alleged that the clerk of the Maryville Town Court, who's essentially responsible for collecting the bond money the defendants post before they're released from jail, the claim is that she diverts those funds for her own benefit. And this is really over about a 5-year period, and the claim is that she diverted over $300,000 in these cash bonds, surety bonds, from about 456 cases that were before the courts.
Now, my question, Greg, maybe this is a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How could this go? And people forget that before I was a very famous local talk show personality, I was actually a high-level manager in the hotel business, and I eyeballed people. That's what I did, and was very successful at catching people who thought that they were going to abscond away with our money. How could this even one case slide by and where nobody would notice? I don't understand that the books don't balance, that the red flag doesn't go up immediately. 456 cases.
Well, you've struck exactly the point that I'm focused on. The other part of the day, I was announcing that in the next session of the Indiana General Assembly, I will be asking the legislature to pass a new bill that would require people such as the clerk in the county courthouse who's bonded to have a double signature for expenditures of the public funds over a certain amount. So there might be questions about what's the appropriate amount, but I think way that in running a business, a hotel or anything else, if you're going to have large expenditures go out, you have certain protections. So I'm going to be asking the General Assembly to add this requirement that's the same as what a larger community, a larger city has to do. So I've talked to the Indiana Associations of Cities and Towns to seek their support. But the idea is we need to prevent the opportunity for people access to these funds without anybody else knowing about it. So she's made off with this money in our claim over 5 years. So it was a little bit without anybody else's review, seeking to have somebody else sign off on appropriations. I think those easy checks could help avoid this in the future.
Yeah, this was obviously a runaway train to go on this long, and I think you're on the right track. As a matter of fact, in business, you don't just balance every day; you balance every shift, because you're just not going to let it get to this level. This is over $250,000. Nice gig if you can get it, I suppose.
It's not like this is unique to the county. It sounds like it from the perspective of people listening to your show, but we've had over 34.
Greg, can you move around wherever you are just a little bit? You're breaking up on us a little bit, and I don't want. We're getting about every other word or every third word.
Well, I was saying that it's not just in Lake County, but in the years that I've been Attorney General, we've had 34 of these types of actions that we've had to try to recover public funds. And I think it's something that goes on way too long, and it's really something that I think it's almost incumbent upon government to have better checks and balances so that not this opportunity to fraud the state government or the cities.
Where at what point do you hand this off for the criminal? How do you divide that up, and who do you divide that that portion of the investigation with?
Well, it's actually a criminal charge pending. So that part of it started, I think it was a little earlier in the process. So remember that when the State Board of Accounts finds these, what appears to be embezzlement, they refer it both to my office as well as the county prosecutor. So I believe there are charges that are already pending against Ms. Crenshaw. So it's something that's already in the works, and we will work with the prosecutor to make sure that if they get criminal restitution, we won't need to go forward with our civil. But I think I needed to do this just to protect, at least against the bond, but also to make sure that since in this case we're asking for treble damages, if we do find assets, we want to get back the money that Maryville had taken from them.
Okay, next obvious question would be, who moved first on this case?
Actually, the prosecutor's office moved first on it. There were a couple of things that we needed to do, so they were, but usually these things come in tandem. If it's large amounts of money like this, there's going to obviously be civil and criminal actions taken. So sometimes in smaller cases, civil actions trying to recover funds, but with over $250,000, there's going to be criminal charges sooner or later. So in this case, it was sooner.
Can you explain a little bit about Bernard Carter, the Lake County prosecutor? He recused himself from this case due to either it's some type of relationship he has with Verlissa Crenshaw. Do you know about that?
You know, I read something in a local paper. It seemed like it was a relationship through marriage or something like that, and I think the prosecutor recognized at least the appearance of that type of relationship. So he recused himself and had somebody else in charge of this earlier, which may have really, his recognition of that might have gotten the criminal charges started sooner. So it's really somewhat to his credit that he spotted that potential problem and got somebody started on this case and took himself out of it.
Yeah, it would be hard for that even to slip by our prosecutor that a family member was under investigation or got arrested.
Well,
I don't mean to sound cruel, but I'm just making a joke.
hey, the Zoeller family is a pretty large family, so if I ever see the Zoeller name up on appeal, I'm going to have to step down too.
I understand that. There are probably not a lot of Zellers around that you're not related to by one way, shape, or another.
Well, there's some that deny that I'm related to them, and there's some I deny are related to me. So we'll leave that for another show.
You came up. I guess you were up here last week, and then you came again this week. How was the scheduling on these things? Couldn't they do you a favor and maybe schedule them during the same week, same day, or does it matter?
I don't think I should have to remind you that Lake County is the second largest county in the state, and I'm up here as often as necessary. So the capital might be in Indianapolis, but I don't think I need to focus all my attention on Marion County instead of Lake County. So I might just start taking office hours up here until you all get used to me.
Well, I can't see any reason why you wouldn't want to maybe relocate to beautiful Northwest Indiana. We'll certainly keep you busy. Hey, last night Tampa Bay beat the Indianapolis Colts 24-17. You got anything to say about that, Greg? I ask you. What's wrong with this team?
I thought they held their own for a while, so it's too early to give up. You guys up here, at least the ones that are Cubs fan, know better than to give up. So I know I've been to a ball game with you one time, and you didn't seem to give up when they were down a few runs. So we're down 0-4, but the Colts have given us so many winning seasons that I won't give up until the last game.
How's that new stadium working out for you guys down there? There's a lot of criticism from Northwest Indiana that we paid for that stadium. Do you care?
I'll tell you what. I think the fact that we're going to showcase not only the capital city, but the whole state of Indiana when people from all over the world come to visit for the Super Bowl, it'll be great advertisement for the state of Indiana. And I think in a lot of respects, it's like when you go to Washington and you feel proud of our country with all the monuments and all the things that we can point to as benefits of our country. Well, the same way I think people from all 92 counties ought to take some pride in our capital city. And instead of being jealous that too much goes, I know from New Albany we always had that same feeling. But I do think there are benefits to showcasing our state capital. So when we have all the people in the millions that'll watch on TV, we can all be proud of being Hoosiers.
I hate to put you on the spot, Greg, but that's what I do, kind of. I know that I have to assume that somewhere along the line, because even with my cereal box law degree that I have, I did get a little international law as part of my breakfast law degree. So I have to ask you about Amanda Knox has been released now from an Italian prison. The courts have let her go due to what the judge termed as flimsy evidence. Do you know anything about that case, or have you seen anything, and can you comment on that at all? 4 years of her life she's been in jail, guilty or not. They weren't. This new judge felt as though they didn't prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, and there was a lot of problems. Anyway, she was released. Have you been following that at all, and can you tell us anything about Italian law, the difference between how we operate and how they operate?
I honestly can't. I know there were a group of Mexican prosecutors and attorneys general that went over and visited Italy because they recently changed some of their statutes to reflect a little more like the adversarial legal process we have in the United States. So I know Italy has undergone some changes recently. But, the only thing I could really say about that case is that in all of the appeals that we do, and we handled over 1,400 criminal appeals last year, the 93% of the cases that we represented the state and won on appeal, so they upheld the conviction. The other 7%, not everybody gets out of jail, But I think it's a reflection of the fact that you have to continually try to improve your criminal justice system. You can't ever let your guard down and just take criminal justice for granted. So I think if they look at it and say, how can we improve our system, how can we think better, that's always a plus for a criminal justice system. So I hope there's something from the mistakes that they claim to have made.
I think in this case, just my humble opinion, the focus that this and the attention that this case got, that the Italian courts were on the world stage, I think, played in this case in the favor of the defendant, and they had to do the right thing. And I just think that the attention they got really forced their hand on this one. One other thing, I know the state fair tragedy moving along. I don't know if settlements are being made. I know suits and countersuits are being fired. Can you just bring us up to date on that?
Well, there is a woman from Chicago area, so close here to the region, that's raised a claim, that has the attorney that's raised a claim about the constitutionality of our caps and raised questions about same-sex unions and all sorts of other issues. But for me, the duty of my office to try to be fair to the victims while representing the state and the tort claim fund that I'm responsible for. I think it's a challenge to try to do things in a fair way. But on the other side, this lawsuit that you might have heard something about really is a effort to get a class action form so that the lawyer and the law firm can seek a third of the recovery. So don't start getting off the real issue here. It's not really that much of a challenge based on same-sex unions. It's not really that much of a challenge on constitutionality. It's an effort by a single lawyer who I think has billboards all along the toll road. But he's trying to get a class action form so he can get a third of the recovery, and people should be outraged.
Will you be addressing that in any way on this trip or any other trip? Will that be something that comes directly to you in some way?
It will. I've been personally involved in the management of these actions, and I do think that it's not something I can delegate. So trying to be fair to the over 50 people that were victims with the limited resources we have appropriated. I have to work within the statutory requirements and the limits, but I think that we'll do it in a way that tries to be fair to everybody. That's why I brought in Ken Feinberg, the guy who helped with 9/11 and the Gulf oil spill and a lot of other tragedies. So he's seen similar kind of challenges, but I hope to rise to the occasion and do it in a fair way. But you will see us address this lawsuit that was brought pretty quickly and firmly, and we won't do it based on any objection to same-sex marriage or all the other things that he's talking about. We're going to try to get it dismissed because seeking a class action to represent all the victims, I think, doesn't do either the state or the victims well.
He's Greg Zoeller, the Attorney General for the great state of Indiana. Greg, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. You seem like a very, very busy man. Hey, maybe someday you can be the guy that says, I finally cleaned up Dodge. There's nothing left to do. I can sit down for a while.
Well, by that time I'll retire from this office and let somebody else start, because there will always be plenty to do.
Keep us updated, Greg. It's always a pleasure.
All right, good to talk to you.
Greg Zoeller, the Attorney General for the state of Indiana.